Tobias Danner stood just outside the 11th café he'd purchased, one of 13 locations under the modest breakfast and coffee chain he had grown from a fledgling idea into a regional name. Nestled quietly between a sleepy bank branch and a dry cleaner in an unassuming suburb, this particular store had never raised a red flag. No complaints, no irregularities in the numbers. Everything on paper looked fine. Too fine. But Tobias never trusted paper. Reports were sterile things, metrics dressed up in spreadsheets, performance summaries polished into perfection. Numbers couldn't tell him what a store smelled like at 10 a.m., whether the staff smiled from the heart or from obligation. That's why, years ago, he created a covert initiative, his own version of secret shoppers, except, in this case, the shopper was him disguised. He transformed himself, with aging sideburns, a modest prosthetic belly, and chunky rectangular glasses that distorted the sharpness of his normally commanding gaze. Today, he was Rick. And Rick didn't own anything. Rick was just another trainee. As he pushed the glass door open, the scent of toasted bagels and espresso greeted him, familiar but dulled by something off. The place was only half full, a post-morning rush lull, yet the music blared with an energy that didn't match the nearly empty room. A teenage couple argued in hushed tones near the front window, while a man in the corner absently tapped at his laptop, but Tobias's attention was drawn straight to the counter. She looked overwhelmed. Her name tag read, Dia. Early 20s, skin flushed, curls frizzing wildly in the humidity of a poorly ventilated kitchen. Sweat dotted her temples. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the POS system, her posture tense as if held together by sheer willpower. Across the counter, an older man in a business shirt barked at her, his voice sharp and entitled. "I've told you 3 times, he snapped. "If you hate your job, just say it." That sentence struck Tobias like a slap. He saw the flicker in Dia's eyes, momentary hurt eclipsed by something deeper. Shame, maybe, or exhaustion thick enough to numb the soul. "I don't hate my job," she murmured, her voice barely above the hum of the toaster oven as she turned away. Tobias shifted to the side, pretending to browse the pastry display, eyes scanning the rest of the team. Or lack thereof. No one backed her up. The kitchen window was jammed with orders, plates stacked like neglected promises. Then a man, tall, unbothered, apron wrinkled, sauntered past the chaos without so much as a glance toward Dia. His name tag read Marcus. He leaned against the back wall and pulled out his phone. Tobias's jaw clenched. He waited. He watched as Dia finally handed off the heated sandwich with an apologetic nod, shoulders sagging from the burden of just trying to keep up. That's when Tobias stepped forward. "Hey," he said gently. "You holding up okay?" She startled, eyes wide. Yeah, sorry about the wait," she stammered, trying to smile. He shook his head. "You don't need to apologize. It's clear you're doing this all on your own." She looked at him then, something unspoken rising behind her polite smile. Maybe it was relief or disbelief that someone noticed, but she buried it with practiced grace. "I can take your order. Actually," Tobias leaned in, lowering his voice, "I'm supposed to start training here today. Rick, Carla told me to show up around 10. Her eyes darted across his face. "Oh, I didn't know." "Sounds about right," he said with a chuckle. She nodded quickly, gesturing him behind the counter. "Okay. Aprons are in the back, I'll show you." As Tobias changed, he watched her from the corner of his eye. The way she moved with mechanical rhythm. How she avoided looking too long at the backed-up kitchen window, as if even a second of recognition would cost her control. When they returned to the register, she demonstrated how to ring up a cappuccino. Her hands still trembled. "Has it been like this all morning?" Tobias asked, his voice low, careful not to spook her. She hesitated, then quietly said, "Yeah, we're short 2 people." And in that moment, something in him shifted. This wasn't just a store visit. It wasn't about numbers or mystery shopper data anymore. This was about someone trying not to drown, while everyone else pretended the water wasn't rising. "As low as 25 hours, Dia muttered as she handed Tobias another order ticket, her voice barely audible over the low hum of the afternoon crowd. "But that's been happening a lot lately, and no one's covering shifts, no one's helping." She glanced toward the back, where Marcus was still glued to his phone like it was life support. "He was supposed to be out front with me. Says it's not his job, claims he's kitchen only, but we're cross-trained. Everyone's supposed to pitch in during rush." Tobias nodded slowly, storing each word like evidence in an unspoken trial. The tense quiet snapped when a voice sliced through the air, sharp, grating. A woman stormed in from the back, blonde hair knotted in a messy bun, eyes hard with frustration. "Dia," she barked. "What are you doing talking so much? We've got customers." Dia visibly flinched. "I'm just training the new guy." Tobias turned to face her, extending his hand with practiced calm. "Rick," he said simply. The woman blinked at him, but didn't take his hand. "Whatever," she muttered, dismissing him like a stray thought. "Just don't slow her down." Then she turned and disappeared back into the office. "Carla," Dia whispered. "She's the manager." "I figured," Tobias murmured. For the next hour they worked side by side. Tobias quietly watched her deflect insults, correct orders, manage the register, and offer kind words to rude customers. Not once did she raise her voice or step away for even a sip of water. She was a calm eye in a storm no one else acknowledged. Marcus stayed slouched by the prep counter. Carla popped out occasionally to bark something into the headset before retreating to her office again. At noon, the line stretched out the door. A man in a worn hoodie approached the counter holding a single crumpled dollar bill. "Just a small coffee," he said, voice quiet. Dia glanced at the bill, then at the screen. The price had ticked up recently. "A small is $1.50, she said softly, then leaned in closer. "Don't worry, I got you." Tobias watched in silent awe as she rang the man up using her employee discount, turning the cost to 0. It wasn't company policy, it was humanity. "Thank you," the man whispered, his eyes avoiding everyone. "Stay warm out there," she replied with a small, tired smile. When he left, Tobias leaned closer. "You didn't have to do that." "Comes in once a week," she said, almost defensively. "Never asks for more than that." Before he could respond, Carla's voice exploded through the headset. "Do it, Dia, stop comping things that comes out of inventory." "Didn't," she began, but Carla cut her off. "Don't argue with me. I'll check the system later." Dia's expression crumbled. She didn't respond. She didn't look up. Just kept her eyes on the register like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Tobias felt something solidify in his chest, an anger so still it burned. By the time the lunch rush ended, he knew the place better than he ever wanted to. His arms ached from hauling trays, his throat raw from speaking over the chaos, his ears numb from kitchen buzzers and complaints. But nothing weighed heavier than watching Dia work non-stop, no break, no water, no kindness from anyone else. At one point, a young boy, maybe 16, dropped a full tray of bagels near the pastry case. Crumbs flew everywhere. The kid froze, paralyzed by embarrassment. Carla's voice boomed from the office. "Clean that up." But no one moved. Not Marcus, not any of the others. Tobias grabbed the mop and knelt. "I got this," he told the boy. "Thanks," the kid muttered, blinking hard. "Sorry. I just started 3 days ago." "You've got nothing to be sorry for." Tobias said gently. Behind them, Marcus plugged his charger into the wall and leaned against the sink, like he was clocking overtime for scrolling. Finally, around 2 o'clock, Dia asked Carla for a break. "Take 5, Carla said without looking up. "But if anyone else calls out next week, I'm pulling your hours." "You're not salaried. Don't act like you are." Dia didn't argue. She just nodded and slipped out back. Tobias waited a beat, then quietly untied his apron and followed. Outside, in the narrow alley behind the store, she sat on an overturned crate, staring at her phone. Not scrolling, just staring at the lock screen like it might offer answers. Her fingers trembled faintly. "You okay?" Tobias asked. She didn't jump, just replied with a flat, "I'm fine." "You're not," he said softly. She let out a breath that sagged into the air like surrender. "If I say I'm not fine, it looks like I can't handle the job. If I say I am, I get another 12-hour shift with no help. So, what's the right answer?" Tobias sat beside her but didn't press, didn't look straight at her. What would it take for this place to actually run right? She thought for a long moment, eyes trailing a delivery truck backing into the alley. Schedule enough people, rotate closers, fix the kitchen printer that's been broken since Monday, and maybe, she paused, lowering her voice, maybe don't let the guy who plays games on his phone all day decide when he wants to help. She swallowed, then added, and don't punish people for helping someone else. I'm not stealing food when I give a guy a coffee he clearly needs. Tobias nodded slowly. Has anyone above Carla ever been here? Not really, she said. Some guy from corporate came once, asked for sales numbers, left. Tobias stood. Come back in when you're ready. I'll cover the floor. You sure? He gave a small nod. I've got it. Inside, the register felt colder without Dia. The air heavier. The cracks in the store more visible without her effort holding them shut. A woman in yoga gear stepped up to the counter. I ordered a breakfast wrap 30 minutes ago. It never came. Tobias checked the screen. Cleared. No wrap in sight. Did a spinach wrap go out for Sandra Lell? He asked toward the kitchen. Marcus didn't look up. Yeah. Already sent. Not my problem if someone stole it. The woman crossed her arms. No one stole it. I've been right here the whole time. Tobias met her eyes. I'll remake it. She softened. Thank you. He punched the order in himself and walked into the kitchen. Move, he said flatly to Marcus. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. What? You've been leaning here for 4 hours, Tobias said, voice low and firm. Step aside. Marcus raised a brow, clearly unimpressed. You're just a trainee. Tobias met his gaze, unwavering. Gabriela veyu. Gamma, yet, anchaga. Memen made her for death. Gamma sumptum. Gamanoklunzum. Name. Okay, Daniel. A short, disbelieving laugh escaped Marcus as he walked off, muttering something under his breath, something Tobias didn't need to hear. He turned to the prep table, hands moving with quiet determination. He grabbed the ingredients for the spinach wrap and assembled it with calm efficiency. As the press hissed softly, he let his eyes scan the kitchen like a surgeon studying a patient mid-semarrage. The floor was sticky. Cleaning logs hadn't been signed in 3 days. A tray of eggs sat uncovered, dangerously close to the edge of the prep station. Any health inspector walking in right now would shut them down by sundown. He finished the wrap and stepped back to the front, handing it to the waiting woman personally. Apologies for the delay, he said, steady and warm. This one's on the house. She blinked, caught off guard. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. Tobias simply nodded, returning behind the counter just as Dia reappeared. Her posture was a little less strained, her breath steadier. "Thanks for covering," she said, her voice still a bit thin but grateful. "No problem." Carla emerged from the office, napkin in hand, clearly fresh from a solo lunch break. No one had delivered anything to her from the kitchen, which meant she'd taken it for herself while her team drowned. "Dia, make sure the bathrooms are done before you leave," she barked, "and wipe down the patio tables. The last shift didn't bother." Dia started to respond, but Carla had already vanished back into her cave of indifference. Tobias leaned closer. "Do you usually close?" "Almost every night." "How many help?" She hesitated. "Sometimes one. Lately just me." He said nothing, but something shifted in his expression, an invisible line being drawn. At 4:30, the next shift was supposed to arrive. A boy named Liam walked in through the front, eyes wide, nervous energy radiating off him in waves. Tobias recognized it instantly. First job nerves, the awkwardness of being new. Carla stormed out again. "You're late." "Sorry," Liam stammered. "My bus was—" "I don't care. Clock in, dishes." Tobias watched as the boy hesitated at the touchscreen near the office. "You ever trained on dishes?" Tobias asked quietly. Liam shook his head. "I was supposed to do register today." Tobias stepped toward the kitchen board. The schedule was a mess, smeared, rewritten, crisscrossed with fading ink. But underneath all the markings, Liam's name was clearly listed under register. Carla had crossed it out in red ink. No explanation. "Come on," Tobias said. "You're on register with me." But she said, "I'll handle her." At 5:00, the dinner rush began. Tobias watched as Dia led with quiet efficiency, and Liam, under her gentle rhythm, started to find his pace. For the first time that day, the chaos felt like it had purpose. They weren't just surviving. They were moving in sync. Then everything came to a screeching halt. A high-pitched shout pierced the air. "What is this?" Carla burst from the kitchen, holding a receipt in one hand, a wrapped sandwich in the other, like they were weapons. This was copped. Again. Who did this? Dia froze. Her breath caught. Tobias stepped forward. "I did." Carla's face contorted. "You don't have comped privileges." "I didn't ask." "You're a trainee. You don't get to decide our policies." Tobias calmly pulled off his glasses, then untied his apron. The room fell into dead silence. "I'm not a trainee," he said. "I'm Tobias Danner. I own this company." Carla's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Behind her, Marcus peeked out from the kitchen and silently slipped away. "I've been here all day," Tobias continued, voice firm but not raised. "I've watched you ignore your team, berate them, let them drown while you hide in a back office. I've seen you change schedules without warning, violate health codes, and punish employees for showing compassion." Carla took a half step back. I didn't know." "It doesn't matter what you didn't know. What matters is you've been running this store into the ground." Dia's eyes widened, overwhelmed. Liam looked stunned, hands frozen over the touchscreen. "You need to leave," Tobias said firmly. Carla blinked. "You're firing me?" "Yes, immediately." She looked around the store like she expected someone, anyone, to come to her defense. No one moved. No one said a word. Tobias turned to Marcus. "You too." Marcus let out a shrug. "Whatever," he mumbled, yanking off his apron and tossing it on the counter. The door closed behind them, and something invisible but oppressive lifted from the room. "We're closing early tonight," Tobias said. "I'll help clean. Tomorrow we start over." Dia didn't say anything, but her eyes shimmered with tears. She turned away quickly, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Tobias didn't press. He just grabbed a rag and began wiping down the prep counter beside her. The next morning, Tobias returned just after 6:00 a.m. The streets glistened with the remnants of an overnight drizzle. the sky still cloaked in deep slate blue. He hadn't called ahead. He didn't need to. Dia was already there, balancing a large cup of tea in one hand while unlocking the front doors with the other. She tensed when she saw him. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," she said softly. "I said we'd reset," Tobias replied. "That starts today." She hesitated, then gave a single nod and let him inside. The store was quieter, cleaner, but still worn around the edges. A few chairs were wobbly. A shelf behind the counter leaned slightly. The storage door still bore a dent near the handle. Tobias walked the store slowly, not as a spy or a CEO, but as someone accountable for what had been allowed to happen. Dia switched on the lights and began pulling out pastry trays. Her movements were steadier now, but cautious, like she wasn't sure if the weight of yesterday had truly lifted or just shifted somewhere new. "Who else is on this morning?" Tobias asked. "Just me until 7, she replied. "Then Andre comes in. He's solid. Been with us about 4 months. After that, there's a gap until noon." She hesitated. Carla used to do the mid-shift herself, but Tobias nodded. "We'll fix it." This time, she didn't look away. "I think she just wrote her name on the schedule to make it look full," Dia muttered, placing a fresh stack of napkins beneath the counter. Tobias narrowed his eyes. "So, between 7 and noon, it's just 2 people?" "Yeah, that's why prep always falls behind." He let out a slow exhale through his nose, jaw tightening with quiet frustration. Then, wordlessly, he stepped behind the counter and began stacking cups beside her. "I'll cover mid today, and I want to talk to Andre when he gets in." By 7 o'clock, the sun had fully stretched across the storefront, and the first wave of commuters trickled through, each with a familiar blend of morning exhaustion and caffeine desperation. Tobias stayed beside Dia, letting her lead. She was different this morning, sharper, not just physically but mentally. She moved with purpose, her voice softer but more controlled. A customer asked for a custom herbal tea not listed on the menu. Without missing a beat, she blended the ingredients herself, handed over the drink with a gentle smile and a warm, "Have a good morning." At 7:15, Andre arrived, tall with a neatly trimmed beard and a barely noticeable limp in his left leg. His backpack swung over one shoulder, a reusable water bottle clipped to the side, and a clipboard tucked beneath his arm. The man moved with quiet efficiency, like someone who had done this 1,000 times, but rarely been seen doing it. "Morning," he said as he stepped behind the line. "You must be the new guy Dia mentioned." Tobias extended a hand. "Not exactly." Andre paused mid-reach. "Wait, the Tobias Danner?" Tobias offered a nod. Andre let out a surprised laugh, shaking his head. "Okay, that explains a lot." Tobias motioned toward the back. "Can we talk?" They stepped just past the walk-in, where the hum of the fridge drowned out the noise from the front. Dia stayed at the register, running point like a conductor at the helm of a small orchestra. "I've been going through store reports," Tobias said. "You're the only one who consistently logs prep times, waste sheets, fridge temps." Andre gave a modest shrug. "Somebody had to. Carla didn't care. She'd just eyeball it." "Well, didn't you escalate?" "I did. Twice. Got the same generic email from District Ops both times. Figured that was my answer." Tobias folded his arms, taking him in more fully now. "And yet, you kept doing the right thing." Andre met his gaze squarely. "Just because no one's watching doesn't mean I stop caring." That hit Tobias deeper than he expected. In a world where so many people only did the minimum, this man had quietly chosen integrity. "You ever run a shift before?" he asked. "I used to be an assistant manager at my last job," Andre replied. Left because the GM kept taking credit for my work and blaming me when anything went sideways. How would you feel about running this store, at least temporarily? Andre blinked, stunned. I mean, yeah, I'd do it, but I don't even have keys. I'm still technically part-time. You'll be full-time by tomorrow, Tobias said, firm and final. And I'll make sure you're equipped. This place needs someone who actually shows up. Andre didn't respond immediately. His jaw tightened, emotions flickering beneath his calm exterior. Then he gave a single nod. All right, let's do it right this time. They shook hands. No fanfare, just shared understanding. When Tobias returned to the front, Dia had handled 6 more customers, refilled syrups, and cleaned the counter. She didn't ask about the conversation. She just handed him a fresh coffee and returned to her task, wordless but present. The team was moving like a machine, finally hitting its rhythm. By 9:30, the morning rush had faded, replaced by soft jazz from the speakers and the occasional clink of ceramic. Tobias sat at a front table, notebook open, scribbling a growing list. Repairs needed, staffing gaps, training issues. Everything Carla had let rot in silence. Then the door opened. A young mother stepped in, balancing a toddler on one hip and a well-worn diaper bag over her shoulder. Her hair was tied back, hastily, her smile faint with fatigue. "Can I get a small hot chocolate and a spinach egg wrap?" Dia greeted her with warmth. She knelt slightly to wave at the toddler, her voice gentler now, more playful. "Would you like it warmed up a little extra?" she asked, glancing at the child. The woman nodded, eyes lighting up with gratitude. "That'd be wonderful, thank you." As they left, Tobias motioned Dia over. "You always that good with families?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "I don't know," she said, suddenly shy. "I just try to treat people the way I'd want my sister treated." "You've got a sister?" "Yeah," she said softly. "She's 11, lives with my aunt now. I help out when I can." Tobias looked back down at his notes, then up at her again. "You ever thought about taking on a lead position?" Her eyes widened just slightly. For the first time all morning, her hands paused. She didn't answer right away, but the silence said everything. Dia hesitated, her lips parting slightly before she spoke. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." Tobias didn't waver. His voice remained even but filled with conviction. "You handled this entire store alone yesterday, for hours. You're more than ready." She looked away, as if the truth in his words carried too much weight to meet directly. A beat passed. "You'd have support," he continued, gently. "Andre's stepping up, and I'll be checking in regularly. But I want you involved. Hiring, training, scheduling." Something flickered in her eyes, faint but unmistakable. A crack in the wall she had built to survive. Belief, not in the job, in herself. "I'll think about it," she whispered. "That's all I ask." By noon, Rosa arrived. An older woman with silver thread braids and the calm of someone who had weathered more storms than she bothered to mention. She moved with practiced ease, folding into the rhythm of the store without needing direction. Tobias recognized her immediately from payroll. 6 years on the books, longer than anyone else still standing in this place. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, eyeing him behind the counter. "I imagine not," he replied with a faint smile. She glanced around, as if sensing the shift. "Place already feels different, quieter, in a good way." "You've stayed a long time," Tobias said, genuinely curious. "Why?" "I like the people, the customers, just didn't like how it was being run." "You ever think about leaving?" "Twice," she said simply. "Stayed both times because of the kids working here. Someone needed to look out for them." Tobias nodded slowly. "We could use someone like you on the training side. You know this store inside out." I'm not interested in titles, Rosa replied with quiet finality. But if you're asking whether I'll mentor new hires, yeah, I can do that. Good. I want to rebuild this with people who care. The afternoon passed with a rhythm that felt foreign in the best way. Customers lingered. A man dropped a 5 into the tip jar and said aloud, "Place feels better today." Even the air itself seemed lighter. At 3, Tobias stepped outside and called HR. His voice was firm and exact. Back pay dia for missed breaks. Raise Andre's rate, effective immediately. Audit every compliance report from the last 90 days under Carla's name. When he returned, Dia was showing Liam how to prepare cold brew concentrate. She didn't notice him watching, but her voice was calm, instructions crystal clear. "You're already leading," Tobias said quietly. She turned, a bit caught off guard, then offered a small, uncertain smile. "Feels different when someone's actually listening." Richard, he checked his watch. "I'll stay 1 more hour, then I want to meet with you and Andre before I head out." At 4 o'clock, the 3 of them sat in the back office, now unlocked, cleaned, and no longer a fortress of avoidance. Tobias slid a folder across the desk. "These are the new staffing plans. I've approved 2 new hires. You'll both be part of the interviews." Rosa's agreed to help with training. Andre skimmed the pages. Dia watched him, then looked back at Tobias. "What happens if the next manager turns out like Carla?" "They won't," he said without hesitation, "because you'll both be involved in choosing, and because I'll be here more often. No more managing through spreadsheets." Andre leaned back slightly, nodding. "This feels solid, like we're not just patching holes." "We're not," Tobias said. "We're rebuilding the foundation." He closed the folder. "You've both already proven you care. That's the first thing I look for. The rest, we can teach." They stood. Dia still looked hesitant, but now it was tinted with possibility. Andre's posture was squared, eyes steady. When Tobias left the store that day, he paused just outside the window. Inside, Dia was showing Liam how to balance the cash drawer. Rosa had arrived and was greeting a customer by name. Andre was behind the counter, correcting a mislabeled ticket with a calm that felt earned. Didn't feel fixed, but it finally felt possible. 2 weeks later, Tobias returned. No disguise, no apron, just a light jacket, jeans, and the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent a lifetime learning what made places like this thrive or fail. The bell above the door gave a soft chime. The store wasn't perfect, but it was different. The lighting was warmer, the music softer. A shelf near the window now held tiny potted plants. The menu board had been updated, clean, legible. A handwritten sign next to the register read, "Let us know if we can make your morning better." Behind the counter, Andre called out a pickup name while restocking lids with his free hand. His shirt was crisp, a laminated schedule clipped to his hip. Next to him, Dia worked the register, hair in a loose braid, posture light. She scanned the line, ready for anything. "Me." Tobias didn't interrupt. He stepped aside. "Just watching." The customer asked for a tricky drink modification. 2 weeks ago, it would have stalled the line. Today, Dia nodded, tapped the screen, and asked if they wanted a receipt. Smooth, confident. Andre spotted him, gave a nod. Not the kind that asked for approval, but the kind that said, "We're good here." "You picked a good time," Andre said as he approached, "between the morning stampede and the lunch wave." Tobias folded his arms. "How's the staff holding up?" "Tired, but steady." "That's real," Tobias said, nodding. "How's Liam?" "Still talks too soft on the headset," Andre grinned. "But he shows up early, stays late. Rosa's mentoring 2 new hires. Even helped train the assistant manager from downtown." "You trust her?" I'd follow her lead blindfolded. What about equipment? Prep stations fixed, printers replaced. We flagged the walk-in door last week. Facilities is coming to reseal. And shifts? Still tight, Andre admitted. We onboarded 2, 1 backed out, but no one's pulling 12 hours anymore. Tobias nodded toward Dia, now helping a teenager count gift cards. How's she doing in the lead? Andre didn't rush his answer. He watched her for a moment. She stops, second-guessing herself. That was the shift. She speaks up now. Emailed procurement last week about a bad shipment, handled it solo. Good, Tobias said. Let's keep building around that. Andre disappeared back into the kitchen. Tobias walked to the front, found a seat in the corner, close enough to see, far enough to not be seen. Dia spotted him 5 minutes later. She approached, wiping her hands with a towel she folded before speaking. You came back. I said I would. She didn't sit, just stood next to him, arms crossed. So what do you actually want to see? I already saw it. She tilted her head, curious. That kid at the register? He wasn't guessing. That's training. Your kitchen's got rhythm. That's planning. And your face doesn't look like it's about to collapse? That's leadership. She looked away, smiled faintly. It's not fixed. Not yet? I'd worry if you thought it was, Tobias said, leaning forward. But it's functioning. That's the start. We still get entitled customers, still get glitchy orders, still get moments I want to walk out back and scream. Good. She blinked. Good? You should feel it. That means you care. The day you stop getting frustrated is the day you've given up. She looked down at her shoes, then back up. I almost quit, you know. The day you showed up. I know you saw it. I didn't need to see it, he said gently. I know the signs. I didn't think anyone would ever listen, she whispered. Now, I don't have to scream to be heard. He smiled, not with pride, but with relief. He pulled a sealed envelope from his jacket. What's this? Promotion confirmation, official title, new pay rate, backdated 3 weeks. She took it, but didn't open it. You sure? She asked. I don't promote people who need convincing, Tobias replied. You earned it the hard way. I just want the paperwork to catch up. She nodded once, tucked the envelope into her apron, and walked back to the line. Tobias stayed another hour. Watched a delivery come in. Watched Rosa swap in at the sandwich station without being asked. Watched a team, not just a staff, keep moving. He stepped outside just before the lunch rush. A breeze drifted across the sidewalk. Across the street, a little girl held a cup of hot chocolate with both hands, grinning wide. Tobias turned back to look at the storefront. The sign hadn't changed, the paint still chipped in one corner. But inside, the people, the only thing that had ever mattered, were different now. He pulled out his phone. Schedule surprise health audits at every location, he typed. No notice, launch anonymous staff surveys, incentivized. He slipped the phone into his jacket and walked to his car. This wouldn't be the last store he visited, but it would be the one he remembered. Not because of how broken it was, but because of who chose to fix it.